expect anybody to join this. It's typical. Usually my backups don't get any type of viewership for a while. They don't get notified, or the people don't get notified. It's not in feeds, the whole deal. So that takes a while. Even with the shadow banning, we're still somehow able to slightly work by that. But on this channel, who knows? Because every channel gets worse and worse and worse with the censorship and the shadow banning and all the other nonsense, the strikes, which is obviously why I'm on here right now. But let me turn the Wi-Fi off because I know that'll mess with me. And then I'll turn the chat on. And we'll give it a couple of minutes, see if anybody's going to join. There's 2 thumbs up, but 0 people here, even though we literally just got a thumb up. What's up, Jay Cree? How you doing? Shannon, good to see you guys. Oh, frustrating day. Frustrating, especially reading all the night. Like, how corrupt is the media, our government? It's just too much. It's too much. We need to take it all back, rebuild it, do it the right way. But one way or the other, we gotta take this country back from these psychopaths that are stealing our rights, like trying to legislate away our freedoms, cramming all this ideology down our throat, stuff that we're not on board with, but that doesn't matter. And if you're not, you're some far right extremist or conspiracy theorist, you're on some DHS watch list somewhere, and then some. And it does get tiring, like looking at it time and time again, even though the stories change, the method is the same. But it's good to pay attention to, right? Because then you at least know what's coming, and hopefully we can steer around it, like the Titanic, or possibly make enough waves where we can affect change. And I think that's been done a few times, honestly. I think over here too. I think obviously the alternative media, the real alternative media, not that fake alternative mainstream media, which is almost all of it. But real channels that are doing real stuff. It seems like over time, it's like bringing it into existence, right? The first time that message is spoken, the first video that's out there, you literally take it out of nothing and bring it into this realm, this world. And from there on out, somebody will see it, and it takes time, and maybe it'll reach somebody. Not just my video. This is how it does work, though. And somebody along the way will see something, and it'll cause them to think about something different. And at least that's how I hope it's continuing to go, because we need to plant as many seeds as possible. We need to keep watering this garden, because right now is fertile soil. There are a lot of people wondering what the hell is going on, right? And the mainstream media has never been more blatant. The governments have never been more blatant. And the reason for that isn't because they're getting sloppy. It's because they don't care anymore. They've become confident enough in what it is that they're setting out to achieve, and probably think they've achieved it. Therefore, the need for secrecy is behind them. Now you just criminalize certain things and then say whoever it is that you want to say is guilty of these very broad terms that anybody could be lumped under, right? That's the thing about like hate speech and misinformation, right? Because it can mean anything that they want it to mean. All it has to do is maybe one or two nights on the mainstream media in lockstep, like they always do, all saying, "Oh, blah 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 blah," and then even though most people will still be like, "What? That's crazy! No way, we're not going along with this." It doesn't matter because they gave the impression that people are on board. It's like 1984, and if anybody still hasn't read that book, you absolutely have to by now. Like that's a must. That and the Bible. Two of the most prophetic books ever to be graced upon mankind. Conspiracy lunatics think that the Titanic never actually sank. I'm one of these conspiracy lunatics, I guess, because I don't know. I'm not saying it didn't, but seeing the way that things are run now and seeing how much the people in power lie, I question all of the stuff that has been fed to us, right? I mean, I doubt all of a sudden in the last 20, 30 years they just decided to 180 and start lying a lot and doing very deceptive and insidious things to the masses. No, of course not. We know this to be true. We know that they've been doing shit like that forever. So a big event like, especially what surrounds the Titanic and the sister ship. And if you don't know about that, check out the documentary. It might take you, it's like 40, it's in the 40-minute range, maybe 42, 45 minutes or whatever. It's search on here on YouTube Titanic sister ship documentary, and you'll see it's slightly older, but it does a really good job at explaining the details. And you don't need to be some type of crazy maniac or what would they say, lunatic, to just connect the most basic of dots, right? One has 12 windows, one has 13. So when you see the one docked after the fact that has 13, you're like, well, wait a minute, did they add a window or is this the other ship? Things like that, right? Like concrete evidence to support something. And then enough of that, after a while, you start being like, well, what's going on here? It feels like I'm being lied to. And usually we are. If it's coming from the media or Big Brother or any of their three-letter alphabet gang agencies, you can pretty much guarantee you're being lied to. And if it's the truth, it just so happens to be the truth, right? It's just like, well, hey, the truth's working out for us this time, guys. Let's just roll with it. But that's seldom, because the truth is usually exactly the opposite. It's what they're trying to avoid at all costs, because usually the truth exposes them. Well, it's not letting me scroll, so we'll skip. I thought this was an interesting article. Well, I didn't. I gotta be honest. I didn't read it. I read the headline and a paragraph, and I was like, yeah, I'll go through this one. Do we got more than two people? Nope, still two. 5 thumbs up. That's strange. I'll give it a couple. Man, I can't stand censorship. Play fair, right? Like, if that's, they have to, though. They have to silence people. And by they, I mean the security apparatus, right? The DHS, the FBI, the NSA, the CIA. All of the, and they're all the same at this point. They're stealing our resources, our labor, our money, using it against us, essentially, right? Using it to fund their operations, and their operations end up doing like false flags and psyops, mass shootings, and sinking of ships, and 9/11, and I mean, it goes on and on and on. It won't it won't be going on much longer in the scheme of things, though. I can promise you that. How DHS is fueling Georgia's terrorism crackdown on Cop City protests. So I've covered this a little bit over the last 6 months, maybe 8 months or so. And what's happening in Georgia is Atlanta's, I don't even know if it's Atlanta or a suburb, but I think it's close to Atlanta nonetheless. There's this massive, massive training ground that they're building to the tunes of millions and millions of dollars. Again, your money. And look at it, everything's going up. People can't make ends meet, but they have no problem printing and stealing as much as they need to accomplish what it is they're setting out to do. And you're going to get the shit end of the stick of it, and they're going to live like kings. These people had the audacity, as times were kind of tough, especially in certain areas that surrounded this cop city, and the forests, the area they were tearing down. You know, you got your people that are like your nature lovers, and not that you shouldn't love nature, but you know, they take it to the next level, those types of people. And just people that were like, wait, what is going on here? Which was the majority. Because what this isn't your typical training center. This isn't, it's massive. It's like a city. They call it Cop City, right? And anybody who protests it, and I'm not like their first ones that I started seeing were like fire bombs and stuff that arresting. This was shortly after. Remember when the DHS came out with a domestic terrorism unit, and I was saying that in order, once you do that, now we never had terrorists, domestic terrorists. There was no designation for that in this country. All the crime you could do was illegal. Nonetheless, everything's on the books as far. They didn't invent any new crimes, saying, "Oh, well, you did this, and we don't know how to charge them, so let's give them to." No, it's already pre-existing crimes that you would serve your sentence for, but now they've slapped a label on it called domestic terrorism. What's up, Sarah? Good to see you. Yeah, I'm glad you did. And the thing about that is, I mentioned this kind of a lot, but it's really important. It's a very key document. That's the National Defense Authorization Act of 2012. And they passed this. This is the military budget, essentially, they pass every year. You know, how much we're going to spend on F-16s and armor-piercing shell, yada, yada, yada. And they also have other things as far as personnel or mission statement, what they want to accomplish, objectives, things like that. Even rewriting legislation if necessary, or giving themselves emergency powers, which in this case is what they did. And these emergency powers allow them, in the case of emergency, which I think we're under like 60 or 80 some odd different national emergencies right now, seriously. So we're always under one, so they could get away with using it. I don't really recall if it has to pertain specifically to a certain, you know, like this national emergency or they can just use it under the guise of a national emergency. But either way, if they can't, they will, you know, create something to do it. But it's like indefinite detention. They can just take you, go run up in your house, guns drawn, you know, get it on the fucking ground, let's do. Imagine that at 3 a.m, you know, you watched a movie with the family. You guys had a good night, eating popcorn, and night, love yous, I'll see you in the morning. But no, 3 a.m, cops burst down your door. Because this is happening. This has happened to a pastor. This has happened to people that have just posted simple things on Facebook. A lot of religious ones, oddly enough, which of course Christians and Catholics and the like are going to be, Christians are going to be first on that list. I should have, and I'll do it again soon. I should show the way, just some of the articles about Christian white nationalism. They love their terminology, man. Something that they can group people under. Oh, well, he fits this word, therefore he must be all these others. So anyways, they're arresting people on things that would be like criminal mischief, trespassing, and they're calling it domestic terrorism, which is again, it's a term you can slap on any crime. It depends on what you're doing that crime for. If it's political, if they can associate it to be political, it's going to be terrorism. You're jaywalking over to the post office. Domestic terrorism. No, they're not going to take it that far. Well, fuck. I mean, they can get pretty carried away with their power, right? But jaywalking to the post office kind of encapsulates the idea. It's anything, if you're doing something that's pertaining to government, or something that is sanctioned by government, or held to a high regard like the mainstream media, right? Official sources, as we're going to see more and more of, like the misinformation campaigns coming soon as 2024 selection is underway. A lot of people arrested during this, and this is what I was saying was going to happen upon the creation of that domestic terrorism unit. And they're starting off with most people on the left, and I think they're doing that because I think it would draw far too much attention, especially after their PSYOP January 6th, if they started going after people that were politically and ideologically right-leaning. Demonstrators in Georgia are fighting against a massive law enforcement training facility dubbed Cop City, being built near Atlanta, then they claim will further militarize the police and destroy dozens of acres of vital forest land. Since December, law enforcement has arrested over 40 Stop Cop City demonstrators under the state's domestic terrorism statute, which carries a penalty of up to 35 years in jail. And again, when you look at what these people did, the statements even from the district attorneys and their lawyers, some are just guilty of trespassing. That's why I spent so many years focused on this domestic terrorism verbiage, the terminology, because it's so much more than that in the hands of these demonic terrorists. There was never any need for it. And the only reason you would create something like that is to give yourself more power. And they knew they were going to do it eventually, and that's why they have the NDAA of 2012, because it set the legal precedent, well, not necessarily a precedent, but it gave them the necessary framework to be complete tyrants in another 10, 15 years. Now, I wonder if we can find something about that on YouTube. I'm sure we can. Fair use, YouTube. This is for educational purposes.
Let's not on team how we make up. Oh.
We construct barricades to keep police out, police, construction, contracting companies. You hear gunshots all the time.
Now, guys, think of the Gretchen Whitmer case, where they literally, the FBI set people up. What's up, Melissa? Good to see you. Set innocent people up and tried to pull off a psyop that they got caught with their pants down on and pulled back. And it turns out that one of the people being framed, this was on Tim Pool too, as well. He covered this, and it's actually pretty good because the guy that was arrested and eventually proven innocent, thank God, but they were trying to set him up. Remember when they were like the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping from these far right extremists? This terrorist event was about to go down, but it got foiled because the FBI was there to stop it, just like always with all the other ones that the FBI sets up. They are a terrorist agency. These are terrorists. Anybody else were to do these things, you'd be going away for a long time. In fact, that they were ready to send these people off for more than half the remainder of their life, if not multiple lives. You go ahead and kidnap a senator and see what that gets you. Nobody in the right mind would, right? That's why they stage these things, because they don't have the white supremacists that they talk about. Yes, I'm not saying that they don't exist, but it's not the threat. The DHS, the FBI, and DOJ, and Joe Biden and his administration all claim that this is the number one. Where are they? And why do the FBI keep getting caught staging these things, dealing with that, if it's such an ever-present threat? And it's clear what the real answer is, right? Because what they really want to do is they want to go after people like you. People that care about freedom, that care about the truth, that want accountability for these insane criminals that have free reign to do whatever they want using our hard-earned money to do so. As you're doing everything you can to make ends meet.
Because there's a police firing right into this. Yeah, you can hear those shots right there.
Occupying this forest is how activists are resisting the construction of a $90 million.
Occupying for trespassing. Now, the people that they get, as we just read, they're being charged with domestic terrorism under the state statute, which can carry a sentence of 35 years. For sitting in the woods.
State-of-the-art police training center protesters call Cop City. The facility will be developed on one of the largest green spaces in Southeast Atlanta, which has a history of oppression.
All of it. It will be clear-cut. They cannot wait. They just want to go in and bulldoze everything and then write the history the way that they want to write it.
The fate of the forest is up in the air as the police and forest defenders both refuse to back down.
Those people, to me, through their acts, are actually domestic terrorists.
Major corporations are pouring millions into this.
Right there. You're standing in the way of the militarization of police departments. You're domestic terrorists. Because this is political, right? This is the government. This is what I'm talking about. And don't think it's going to stop with this. They're going to do what they always do and incrementally inch their way there. A little bit more and then a little bit more. Because they don't want to do it all at once and shock the people awake. They get them used to it, right? Oh, well, yeah, these people, we heard something, of which are lies coming from the mainstream media, the talking heads of the CIA, which we found out in the 70s and 60s. But we just assume that they stopped doing it even though they never told us they did. Why? Of course not. Of course you would control the media. That would be the first thing you got control of.
Project financially pressuring politicians to build Cop City.
Why did you vote to approve this facility?
Surrounding neighborhoods that are more than 75% Black say their concerns have been silenced.
Our
Opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't count.
It's disrespect.
Right, isn't that funny? The oppressed minority groups in this country that they keep, like, look at, I mean, the Buttigieg, when he was all the racist bridges and everything else, all this garbage, these talking points that are so nauseating that we hear day in and day out. And this is Pride Month, so we got a little bit of a different flavor this month, but we'll be back to the same old. There'll be a shooting, a cop and an unarmed black man, and there'll be cities on fire because people are going to buy into it and they want a reason to release the anger that they have from being locked up for fucking 2 years inside of their homes, forced to get inoculated with an experimental vaccine or lose their job, some of them.
And that's what folks who live here ought to be just enraged about.
Is that misinformation, YouTube? Did I say something that was wrong? Because my other video wasn't matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that all of the videos that you've stricken me down for didn't have misinformation. What I asked them, I would love to have a reply as to what exactly was misinformation concerning vaccines in my last live stream. Remember that? I don't know if you've seen my last live stream before it was taken down, Sarah, but that's what I essentially did. I was saying it's safe and effective. What a great thing it was. Of course, it didn't have any of those nanotechnologies that people said it did. Those with the crazy. I was just trying to inform people when I did talk about them. But apparently, if that's misinformation, I don't want to know what's in it, right? Because I was trying to tell people that it didn't have any of this stuff. And YouTube said, no, you're lying. That's what it looks like, man. You know, maybe I'm wrong.
Chime, the #1 most loved banking app.
Install the Chime app today and get started.
If that were to be the case, that would be a very dangerous thing to start doing, right? Because you could say, oh, it seems like sarcasm with anything. You can never, that will never be an acceptable. Not that any of it's acceptable as is. You should be allowed to have an idea, an opinion, a thought different from what Big Brother says, and be able to share it. And this is the media, right? These are our social media platforms doing the dirty work of the government. And it's getting to the point now, people are just self-censoring. And I refuse to do that. That's why I go through so many channels, but principles are important.
I still get anxious when I'm like coming down.
This forest defender who goes by Fruit Bat has been living in trees for the past 6 months.
You know, the banner says stop destroying Earth. The great thing also is that you don't have to destroy the tree to live in it.
These forest defenders are a coalition of activists operating without a centralized leadership.
It makes me feel like I'm...
Keywords, without centralized leadership. Again, I want to draw your attention back to many of the videos that I covered with DHS and the FBI, and how the mainstream media are referring to these people and how, the way that they're referred to these people, and who are these people? They're the conspiracy theorists. They're the people spreading misinformation. They're the anybody's that they don't want calling out their lies, right? And in order to make them look like an official, because the way everything else prior has been set up, terrorist organizations are organizations. They have a structure. There's people in charge. You know, there's people, the foot soldiers. It's a whole network, and it's organized. But that's not the case. These are just normal Americans, like not just here, but all over. The people that they're trying to demonize and criminalize are just people that are concerned with the direction that their government is going. It's in 100% contradiction with the way it was founded and the intent that our founding fathers had for this country. As the people were the ones with the final say, the ones that held the power. But they realized the necessity of government to carry out things like infrastructure and civil duties and law, your but that was supposed to be the extent of it. They're not supposed to start saying, oh, well, hey, what you're saying is dangerous because it can incite some crazy person to do something crazy. Crazy people will do crazy shit regardless of whatever needs to be said. Yet, if you could use that for a pretext for anything, and that's exactly why they did it. And framed all of this in that manner. So they can literally go after anybody that they want to. They're building it right now. And it's so in our face at this point. 10 years ago, I used to have to very carefully go through articles and pull things out and go through DHS documents and show like, oh, well, this is what they... And it took an incredible amount of attention and time. Now it's blasted all over, nonstop. It's in your face, and they're telling you what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And most people still are just, well, whatever. I was appalled. Glenn Greenwald is one of the few journalists that I respect. And he was calling out the CIA's involvement in Brazil because the mainstream media decided to, it was a market, like the financial markets. It was a market website. I don't remember the name of it, but the CIA literally made comment and said what it was that they did there, what the reason was for them being there, what they were trying to accomplish, and what they did. And Glenn Greenwald was basically calling them out for it on Twitter, exactly what it was. Because 30 years before that, I don't know if anybody knows history, but the CIA did the same thing. And it's proven, it's well documented, and admittedly so. When we staged a coup like we do all the time and took down a democratically elected president, a leadership, a whole administration that the people of that country elected to be their representative. And the CIA goes in, stages a coup, and tears that down. And who fills the void? The military. That would do exactly what the CIA essentially wanted them to do it, and the people. It was a war zone, and it was absolutely atrocious, and still is. But like, so many people lost their lives, and it created a standard of living that is just horrendous for people to go through.
Part of something greater than myself.
Fruitbat is using a pseudonym because he's afraid of getting tracked and punished by authorities. The police, FBI, and other agencies are currently investigating the movement against Cop City.
The SWAT team has come through here before and arrested people.
Several protesters were arrested during a police raid after a confrontation in which
and charged with domestic terrorism. Just for doing this because they're doing this against the government. This is disgusting. They're looking at the rest of their life, pretty much. Imagine going in when you're 20 and getting out when you're 55. For what? For making a fort in a tree? This is where we're at. This isn't like a prediction. This isn't what may happen if we don't do it. This is now. This is what is occurring now. That most people couldn't give a shit about and will continue moving forward as more and more draconian laws get passed, as new labels get created, and as they start enforcing more so than ever the ones that they already have created.
Activists allegedly threw Molotov cocktails at officers.
Yeah.
Forest defenders say
that was what I was talking about. The first ones that were charged with domestic terrorism. That got the ball rolling. And those were probably feds. Judging the way that the FBI acts with this type of thing. I'm pretty certain. I mean, 90% of the terrorist incidents that they've stopped, they helped create. That's a fact. And it's a high 90. I think it's like 95 or higher. That's a fact. Again, using your money that you worked for, your hard-earned cash, stolen from you. Because I personally wouldn't give it to these terrorists so they can use it to arrest us. But they just take it out of my paycheck, so I don't have much say. Because they're thieves. Dishonest. Unintegral. Scumbags. The worst of the worst that mankind has to offer. People that can sit there and try to justify in front of a camera, just like these mainstream media whores, why it is that it is necessary to lock you up for simply having an opinion or sharing information that they call a conspiracy theory or misinformation. Oh, that sounds ridiculous? Well, so yeah, it does sound ridiculous. Then what? But the DHS and the FBI are concerned about those terms an awfully lot, considering they put those two at the top of the domestic terrorism threat list. And they're not playing around. They're not doing it as like a game. All this stuff will unwrap. That's going to hit us like a ton of bricks one day. And we're going to all wonder, some of us, most of us, will all wonder how we got here. 5 minutes before they get yanked out of their house for their own protection and sent into some camp somewhere to be re-educated because somebody went through their Instagram and turned them in because they were talking about Cop City.
Authorities have continued to destroy tree houses during raids.
Sort of a main gathering.
As we toured the forest, we heard gunshots for hours.
And you can hear the gun firing.
That's coming from a
So what? Whether it was the cops or the people, you have every right to shoot guns. I mean, unless you're shooting people, of course, or, hurting something, but there doesn't need to be less guns. There needs to be more guns in the hands of good people.
police firing range that already exists nearby. The plan is to expand that into an 85-acre campus. That's as big as nearly 64 football fields put together. The facility would be one of the biggest in the U.S.
That's not a facility, guys. 64 acres that's a city. They're not just going to be training there. They're setting up, this is the one going up for this FEMA region. You remember Agenda 21 and how they broke up this was handed out to all of the local police districts, sheriff's office, trooper barracks. It showed the map in the FEMA districts that when some emergency or whatever, their future happens, this is how it'll be broken up. You're going to need a major city like this per region. And this is the first one going up.
See here in a video plan provided by the Atlanta Police Foundation, among the training features will be a burn tower for firefighters, a shooting range, and a mock village, including a school and residential home.
I can only imagine the shit they'll try to get away with something like that, right? A mock school. They could just change the set out. They'll have all these classrooms, right? Put different things up, take a door, move it over here, move some chairs around, move some desks around. Oh my God, look at this mass shooting. Kind of what they did with, in my opinion, Sandy Hoax. Because the school in question had been closed for water damage for years. That was proven in court. There was still the water lines on the walls. The classrooms were... But somehow, it's a CIA town. The whole town's a CIA town. On Christmas, 3 years, maybe 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, somewhere in that vicinity, before Sandy Hoax occurred, every house but 2 or 3, every house, especially of the people involved, coincidentally, I'm sure, had their mortgage paid off or were given a new house on Christmas. What realtor is working at 11 o'clock at night on Christmas? They were busy, whoever it was, because they got a lot done.
But residents who live nearby say they were blindsided by the city's plan to expand the massive police facility.
This happened literally in my backyard. No one has reached out to me. I do see when they ask for votes. I do see that.
Shenard owns a tow truck business near the proposed facility and lives in a neighborhood that is more than 76% black.
Head to the backyard. The forest is literally probably about less than a mile. Police Academy is kind of like over there where they train at, so...
The existing gun range already disturbs his day-to-day life.
Once the dogs hear fireworks, gunshots, they go to,
that's a big
having all kind of issues, running away. I'm not sure if they're trying to force us out of the community and just take over the whole community.
Love his shirt, by the way. Absolutely love his shirt.
Overall, but that's what it looked like, the way the path we headed down.
Atlanta's proposal to construct the police facility here speaks to the land's painful history. The site was a prison farm until 1995. Prisoners there were subjected to harsh punishments and slave conditions, including poor sanitation, nutrition, and overcrowding. Some critics say claims of unmarked graves have not yet been properly investigated. Before that, the land is thought to have been a plantation that enslaved at least 19 people. It was originally stolen from the Muskogee, who lived there until the U.S. government forcefully displaced them to Oklahoma. Today, both activists and tribal members have reclaimed the indigenous name as Willani Peoples Park. Local advocates have long called for the area to be preserved as a historical site.
Because they just can't wait. They cannot wait. They just want to go in and bulldoze everything and then write the history the way that they want to write it and be done with it. They haven't even done proper, ecological surveys yet.
But Cop City isn't the only facility that the residents have opposed. Around the forest is a Hollywood studio, sanitation center.
Interesting. A mock village with a mock school right next to a Hollywood studio. No, don't put 2 and 2 together, you crazy conspiracy theorist.
Juvenile prison, and asphalt and trucking factories.
So that's Key Road landfill. Nobody wants to address the environmental injustice of this. Those issues have never been vetted.
The facilities have severely polluted Entrenchment Creek, which flows downstream to the South River. Jacqueline Eccles is trying to prevent the construction of Cop City from an environmental perspective.
When we were here about a month and a half ago,
She's going to get arrested. And there's been plenty of people just like her before her that's been arrested for literally doing nothing, for being on property, and facing very serious charges. And the crazy part is they don't have a right to a speedy trial. That's the beauty of domestic terrorism, or terrorism in general, but domestic terrorism meaning us people here in the United States. I think it's time to go over that section of the NDAA 2012 again. Because it's not just about that. It goes into more detail about like work brigades and what kind of crazy nonsense they've given themselves the power to do in the event of a national emergency. And the indefinite detention, indefinite means they can hold you without charge for as long as they see fit. But you got to be suspected, not guilty, not even arrested, not convicted, obviously, just suspected of terrorism, domestic terrorism. And you can rot away in a jail cell, and that's the intention of it. And that's why it's worded that way, is because when it comes time, after one of the major events that they pulled off, they're going to use that as the pretext, the vehicle in which they're going to gather up as many of the most prominent dissidents that they can for whatever it is that they're going to find them suspicious of and charge them with. And they will sit there and wait and wait and wait. And eventually, as they'll give them the option of either re-education camp or doing hard time. You don't think so? Mark my words.
We pulled 100 tires out of the river and 40 or 50 bags of trash. When you look at the rivers, the creeks, none of them meet water quality standards. And the cheapest way to improve water quality is to protect the green space.
In a 2017 report by the city...
All right, enough of it. I'm tired of hearing this nonsense. What's up, We Free? How you doing? James, good to see you guys. Appreciate you being here. They are commies. They're technocratic, dictatorial, totalitarian commies. Parents' rights groups labeled extremists. SPLC lists a key Florida group as anti-government. So, when has anti-government been an issue? See, again, guys, I want to remind you, you live in America. I also want to remind you to share the video, get it out there. I have a feeling we're going to be spending more and more time on this channel in the near future. So, get it out there. Share it please share it the best that you can. There's some good stuff coming up. I planned on releasing it on my other channel, but this is my main channel. That's why I refer to it as such when I talk about it. Even though it's not yet, it is my main channel. You'll see what I mean eventually. Yeah, speaking of those used tires and the climate thing, We Free. Did you see the thing with Saudi Arabia? I think it was Saudi Arabia, and they have these tire cemeteries. And just crazy amounts of tires. And then off in the distance, and this was like about climate change and stuff, right? And how they were going to use these tires for like recycling and creating new goods and stuff. But off in the distance, there's this thick, black, dark, like wretched cloud of black smoke just billowing into the air. The irony. The Southern Poverty Law Center is for the first time labeling Florida headquartered Moms for Liberty and 11 other right-wing parents' rights groups. So groups, not even 11 parents, 11 other right-wing parents' rights groups. How extreme do you think a parents' rights group is? What do you think they're fighting for? Other than to know what's going on with their children in schools. That would be my guess as to the number one concern that they have. And we've seen the way the Mayor Orcus and the DOJ had no problem labeling as domestic extremists. That's on the DHS terror threat list. Concerned parents. To give you an idea, I just want to go around to the 299, what are we up to, like 320 million? I don't even know. How many people, every single person in this country, it's probably not necessary because there's a good portion of them that are already awake, so you get it. And shake the hell out of them, smack them a couple of times, take the phone that they're gazing into and direct it over to one of these government agencies that's telling them, hey, that thing you're looking at right now, we're deeming it as dangerous. Therefore, you're being put on. They have no idea. And most people are guilty of something one way or the other. It just depends if you end up on the wrong side at some given time. If you become inconvenient for whatever agenda that they're pushing. They don't care who you are, what side you're on. You may be a perfect little left-winger right now. They used to do the same thing the other way around. They play the sides off of each other, and they're always going to use them because it's a very, very, very effective tool. You attach yourself to a team, and let's go get the other side. Even though they even switch their like what it is that they believe. Now the right is left, and the left is like extremely right. Like the left is actually right-wing extremist in the traditional sense. It's just nonsense, man. It's all garbage. Garbage in, garbage out. But it's getting bad. And I think, man, if I could just reach people, guys, that's why I'm counting on you. Like, just have a little faith in me. I haven't even out of all these channels and all these years, I haven't even said my motivations yet. But I have some. So if you'd like to help out, just get it out there. I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I appreciate everything. Everything. Hope you guys have a great night, great day tomorrow, great week, great month, great year, great decade, century, millennia. Much love. Peace.